Well, good afternoon. I hope you can all hear me. Thank you all for joining. And that was just a quick preview or a reminder, actually, a recap on last year's awards ceremony. And that will probably whet your appetite for this year's one. So first of all, thank you all for joining. Today, we're just going to give you a opportunity to ask any questions you've got on this year's CIPS MENA Awards, which are going to be held, as you know, on the 5th of May in Riyadh in Saudi Arabia. That's going to be our regional awards ceremony. And today we're going to go through rather a few areas that may be useful to you in putting together your awards, and most importantly, to ask any questions that you have. Closing date today. So we'll remind you what that is. The closing date is the last day in which you can submit your entries for the awards. And that's when shortly after the judging will begin. We'll talk to you about what the categories are for this year's awards as well. A few guidelines. We'll just remind you on who were the successful winners last year, and then we'll have a chance to answer any questions you have. And we had a few questions come in before this event, so I'll tackle those as well. So let's just go through this. And look, the main benefit of this will be to answer any questions that remain unanswered to enable you to submit your submissions for this year's awards. So as a reminder, and this is the most important date because we're very close to it, the cutoff date to submit your award, the closing date, is next Tuesday. So that's Tuesday, 18th of March. So by that day, we should have received your awards entry so that the judging process can begin. So that's the closing date to enter the awards. Now, we know the ceremony itself will be on the 5th of May, so that's in a couple of months from now, but the closing date by which we need to receive your entries, very important, is next Tuesday, 18th of March. These are the categories. So anybody who's been onto the website or via the link, these are the categories. There are 13 team categories. So these categories are the categories that your company can enter, or you can enter on behalf of your company. Best use of digital technology, risk mitigation, collaborative team project, transformation program, all the way down to procurement team of the year, small organization and large organization. Now, you can enter into as many of these categories as you want. And in fact, if there is a project that covers many of these categories, so let's say, for example, you've done a digital transformation project, which also derived a number of savings and also was a collaborative process between yourself and a consultancy or a IT company. You could enter, for example, the best use of digital technology, best teamwork project, best transformation project, etc., etc. You can enter all of these for the same initiative if you wanted to. You'd obviously need to make sure you need to be guided by the guidelines within each categories to make sure your project qualifies. But yes, there is no restriction on entering the same project for multiple categories. So these are the categories, the team categories, and aligned to that, there are also 5 individual categories as well for a procurement leader of the year and young talent of the year. And the most influential CPO of the year category is also an award. However, that's not one you enter. So that's one that will be selected by a jury based on the other 4 categories that are in front of you that people have entered into. So these are for individuals, procurement leaders, procurement directors, or young and up and coming innovators within procurement and supply who can apply for these individual categories. There are guidelines on how to enter. Won't really go through these in detail here, but when you go onto the website, this is what you'll see. And just going through the list, check that your organization is in the CIPS MENA area. So if your organization is in the Middle East and North Africa, or you have an affiliation with the region, or you have a department or regional office within the MENA region, that becomes your qualifying area, right? Okay, so that's the first thing. Then obviously you choose the category, make sure you read the description, and I'll really advise everybody to make sure you're reading the instructions very, very carefully. And I'll draw your attention to, for example, number 6, where it says write a 100 word project overview. It seems very simple, but it says write a 100 word project overview. Do not write a project overview with 101 words. Okay, because obviously you could do less, but do not write a 500 word project overview, or a 200 word, or as I say, a 101 word project overview. Just pay attention to these guidelines, because that's going to make sure you'll be successful in first of all being shortlisted, and also in being successful. You can, of course, add supporting information to your entry, but make sure it's annotated clearly as supporting information, and full guidance of all of this is in the instructions that you receive. A recap: these are last year's winners. So these were the successful people. Last year we had Marcel, we had Suleiman Abdullah from the Federal Tax Authority in the UAE. He was the leader of the year last year. Other organizations, Etihad Airways were the procurement team of the year for large organization. Monshat were the procurement team of the year, small organization. And then we had an overall winner, which was SABIC. So these are the people who won last year. It was a highly contested event last year. Some fantastic entries we received, and on the night, these were the organizations that were honored. So that's just a very quick overview. This really is an opportunity to hear from you guys, and I'll take a Q&A now. As I say, I do have some questions that came in before. Go through the 5 questions we have here. So the first question that was asked is there an entry fee for associated with the awards? And that was asked. The answer is no. The cost for submitting an entry, there is no cost for submitting an entry to any of the categories you want to enter, so you can go ahead and do that. Do I have to be a CIPS member or an existing client to enter the awards? No, you just need to be eligible for the categories. It's as simple as that. The other question was, let me see, what happens after I've entered the awards? So the answer to that is, once you've entered the awards, after the deadline, the judging process will start. And once the judges have selected the winners, a shortlist will be announced, and that shortlist will be announced around the 16th of April, I understand. So around the 16th of April, a shortlist will be announced, and at that point, you will know that you're one of the finalists to win an award based on your entry. After that, the final winners will be announced on the night. So that's on the 5th of May. So all shortlisted organizations, make sure that you've reserved your tickets and your tables for the final, which is on the 5th of May. Make sure you're there, because that's when the finalists will be announced. The other question I've got: if I've won, will I know before the ceremony? Well, you'll know. What will happen is on the 16th, my note here is, on the 16th of April is when the shortlist will be completed, will be announced. So you will know whether you're shortlisted on that day. So that's the opportunity. If you're on the shortlist, then you know you're a finalist. But the finalists will be announced on the night. So on the night of the actual award ceremony, that's when the winners will be announced on the actual ceremony. Those are the main questions I've got at the moment. The other question I had was around the guidelines. For the guidelines, please do look on the website and observe them fully to make sure that your entry is going to be compliant. And the final question I've got here is, what's the probability that I or my team will win? So that's a great question, but I've got no idea, because I don't know what your entry is. So it's a fully transparent and independent process outside of CIPS. In fact, we have a panel of judges and a chair of judges. They will review all of your submissions independently, and a consensus will be reached as to who the winner is for each category. So it's a fully transparent process. It's not based on my input, which is why I can answer the question and say, I don't know what your probability of winning is. But if you put in a compelling submission based on the particular category, then you've got a great chance to win. So there you go. Other questions I've got here. We are an India-based company. Would like to confirm we're eligible to submit an entry for the CIPS MENA Awards. The entry we wish to submit is based on something we executed for a global FMCG company. So the answer is yes. If it's a global FMCG company, yes, you can indeed enter the awards, as long as your entry is eligible for one of the categories. So that's absolutely fine. The other question was, how will the entries be judged? As I said, we have a panel of judges. I believe there's about 18 judges. I'll be corrected, but there's a number of judges. The submissions are submitted to the judges, who will then judge those independently, and they'll judge them based on the criteria of each individual entry. And there are guidelines around how they can judge and how they can score. And then a chair of the judge will assist in coming to a consensus if there is no consensus around that. What would you advise is a good, precise, and effective submission look like? Okay, that's a good question. So a good and concise submission will be one that fully follows the guidelines that have been given to enter the awards. So you'll really need to, against each category, submit what you've done, to submit why is your entry the best execution of digital technology, for example. And then you'll need to be very clear on what benefits your organization derive from that. So you'll need to submit facts and figures in there and demonstrate clearly why your submission or why your company are eligible to be recognized for this particular project. And I would always say the best way to think about it is just remember that the judges do not know or are not basing your submission on your company. So you could be the most famous organization in the world, but all they're judging on is what they have in front of you, in front of them rather, and what the project title is, or sorry, the category title is. So that's what they're judging against. So make sure you provide all the relevant information that evidences why it's a good submission. The next question was, what would you advise a good and precise, effective submission look like? I've answered that one. Are there any common mistakes in past submissions that we should avoid? Yes, the common mistake is not reading the instructions. So as I said, clearly, if it says your submission should be, or your front page should be 100 page, should be up to 100 words, then that's the instruction. So where instructions are precise at the base minimum, just make sure you adhere to those, because it's those things that the judges are going to be basing your submission on. They're going to be basing this, they're judging on the guidelines that you've been given, and nothing else. So just bear that in mind. Do we need to have a local office in MENA for our entry to qualify? No, not necessarily. If you have operations in the region, then of course you can submit your entry. Absolutely, there's no limitation on that at all. I think those are the main questions I can see on the Q&A. Let me just have one final check to make sure I haven't missed anything. No, I haven't. And in the chat, just remember, guys, I'm just looking in the chat and there are some questions in there. Just make sure you put the questions in the Q&A section. Yeah, not in the chat. But I will just quickly go to the chat. There's a question about, I'm interested on the branches targeting the social impact, the amount of events we completed. Are branches eligible to participate in this category or competition? Look, what you can do is if what you're doing is relevant to a category, then yes, you can enter. Yeah, so if there is as a collective or as a branch that you are you see one of the categories that is relevant to your entry, then absolutely by all means enter. That's fine. Any chance of extension of the deadline? Well, the deadline is next week, so there's still plenty of time to submit your entry at this point. So, the deadline is the 18th of March, and that gives you between now and that time to submit your entry. So let's make sure we adhere to that. Another question, why do the same people win every year? It's an interesting question, and I can only answer it in one way. It's very simple. The same people don't win every year, and so I think if you look at maybe the last 5 years as to who the winners are, I think you'll find they're very different. And I can confidently say that because obviously I attend every one of these ceremonies. So the same people don't win every year. How is sensitive information being handled? Well, first of all, I mean, all of the judges, first of all, are obviously independent. They're not with CIPS, but they have signed up to NDAs. They are under strict instructions to keep everything confidential. So yes, they are not allowed to either collectively or individually share any information outside of the judging process. So that's how it's being handled. None of the information around the process is shared publicly, and everything that's shared publicly, such as you being a winner or a runner-up, is signed off with the company before we do that. The next question was, if we don't win, do we get feedback? Yeah, if you're shortlisted and you're not successful, absolutely, you can request feedback, and we can request that the judges provide us with the feedback for us to share with you. So the answer is yes. The other, okay, it wasn't a question. It was that I have nice trophies behind me. I do indeed, actually. That's a good observation, right? In fact, one of them is a CIPS MENA trophy. So if you want one of those, enter the awards, and we'll be very, very happy to hand you one of those trophies as well. Let's see. I think there was another question. How are endorsements typically viewed? Is the endorsement at the VP level sufficient, or is it necessary to seek approval from a high level of leadership? Okay, so I think what the question is when you're putting in your submission, how do you need to evidence that something was successful? So if you say this went well within the organization, we saved this amount of money, we trained this amount of people, what evidence or what endorsements do you need? And all I'll say is, look, in how are endorsements typically viewed? Endorsements are viewed very, very well, because as many people who can evidence or send endorsements to support what you're submitting as an entry to an award is good. So get as many endorsements as possible. And obviously, yes, the more senior the person is, the better, because that shows where the impact is happening within your organization or within your stakeholder group. So endorsements are very important. The next question was, does it need to be certified or an email suffice? Look, what I'll say to that is, without going into, because I can go into a lot of detail here, which you can take verbatim, but go into the instructions on the awards website. That will be very clear as to how you submit information and what needs to be submitted, right? And that's all you need to follow. So whatever it says in terms of how you submit your entry and what you need to submit, i.e. the sizing, the format, whether it's PDF or Word, all of that is contained in full detail in the instructions. And no, it doesn't say it needs to be certified. It just says you just need to have those endorsements. But again, for the minute detail of what format it needs to be, go to the instructions on the awards website and make sure you adhere to that. Another question was the project title. Is it my own project title? The project title needs to be the title of what the project is. So if the project is, if the project is how your company reduced your carbon footprint by 100, or whatever, then that's the title of your project. So it's your internal project title if you have one, or you can call it whatever it is. Another question: why is it in Saudi again? I suppose the answer to that is why not? Remember, this is the regional event, and it can be in any country. We've had it in Saudi before. We've had it in Doha before. We've had it in Riyadh before. We've had it in Dubai before. Sorry, we had it in Abu Dhabi before. Apologies, we've had it in Abu Dhabi before. We've had it in Dubai before. So any of these cities, in fact, any city across the Middle East and North Africa that has a suitable venue at a given time, we're happy to host it there. And to the question that the person asked, it is good to move it around the region as much as possible where it's feasible. And I appreciate last year's awards were in Riyadh, which is, I guess, why the question's being asked. But of course, we've had consecutive awards in consecutive cities before, in Abu Dhabi and Dubai, and as much as we can move it around, we will. But we found the best venue at the best time for this particular year's award was in Riyadh, which is why it's there. So we hope to see you there. I already bought a ticket. Can I attend the event? All right. The question is, if I've already bought a ticket, can I attend the event if I was not shortlisted? Yeah, the straight answer is yes, of course. The event is not just for finalists. Anyone can attend the event. And in fact, just remember that on the 5th of May, during the day, starting at 8 o'clock in the morning, or at 8 o'clock for networking, 9 o'clock for the event, we have the CIPS MENA conference. So the conference is during the day, and that's a heavyweight conference. We have obviously keynote speakers from around the world, and we're expecting, and we'll see if it happens. We're waiting for final confirmation if one of our keynote speakers will be Tim Cook from Apple. So that's the latest keynote we're working on. We'll keep you informed on that. But during the day is the conference. So up until 4 or 5 o'clock is the conference, and you're all obviously invited and welcome to come along. In the evening is the awards dinner, where obviously all the shortlisted companies will be there, but it's not a closed event. So anybody else who is not a shortlisted company can attend that awards dinner as well, and the full details are on the website. I think the last two questions I've got here. Can I submit more than one time for the same project? Yes, of course you can. Yeah, as long as the rules are adhered to. So if you've done two projects relating to sustainability, or two projects related to digital transformation, for example, within your organization, then of course you can put those in as separate entries. Absolutely. As you can enter the same project for different categories as well, if that's what you want to do. And the final question is Singapore next year? The answer is no. The CIPS Middle East or MENA conference will not be in Singapore next year, but there will be a CIPS Asia Awards event in Singapore next year. So if anyone wants to travel to that, they're quite welcome to go to that event. So thanks, guys. I think that comes to the end of the questions. Just going to check the chat. I think we've answered all the questions. Again, go to the website. The full details are on there. Put your entry together, look at the rules, submit, and just remember we've got the deadline on the 18th of March. Hope you can all submit by that time. And I hope to see you all on the 5th of March for the conference and in the evening for the awards. And best of luck with your entries. Take care. Bye.